March 13, 2020, when the world fell apart, so to speak, that created a lot of trauma for a lot of kids. There were also a lot of families where the parents did have to continue working, where they were essential workers, and the kids often sort of had to figure out for themselves how to get through school, how to combat the loneliness feeling that they're sort of feeling. There's higher rates of depression. But just isolation is really, really difficult. And there's this uncertainty that the pandemic really brought on everyone, including adults. Adults tend to have higher sort of skills, in terms of the processing of emotions. And I like to think of it as emotional skills are really a learned skill sets. So having this ultimate sort of toolkit is what I arm kids with. And that's this idea that they don't control you, these emotions. They come up in you, but they don't control you and you don't control them. They're actually here to help us, and they're just delivering a message. And so when you think of it that way, then it's a much easier way to process emotions, and sort of to think of it as they're here to help us. They have a purpose. They're delivering either an alarm or a reward to get our attention or to reward us. And then they're signposting something for us. I think by giving kids this major shift and not thinking it's a bad thing to feel these things, it's completely natural to be feeling lonely and isolated and depressed when you're not around anybody. But you have to make sure that we're talking through it and that we're giving kids these skills, because without them, you're going to get these really negative side effects that it might physicalize, or it might sort of be what I call ninja mode, which is it gets really, really quiet, and then suddenly out of nowhere you explode. And, emotions have a funny way of doing that. But I also like to differentiate between the emotions themselves and the thought patterns that come with those emotions. And that's something that I actually only learned when I was in my 30s, to sort of really understand, well, there's these emotions that are sort of a chemical reaction in my body, right? The dopamine hit or so on and so forth. But then there's also these thought patterns that come with it. So I used to say a lot of things like, life is tough, or it's all on me, or you've got to grit through it, all of which are really, really unhelpful thought patterns. And when you can differentiate the thought patterns from the emotions, then it's much easier to sort of get rid of the thought patterns that aren't serving you. Because those thought patterns, by the way, we're programmed, right? As human beings, we're programmed to recognize patterns, but those patterns are based on the stories we tell ourselves, not on fact.